All right, so in this option of the second part of the assignment, besides the colorizing a black and white photo, this is going to work with basically if you want to do a drawing outside of on a piece of paper, such as it were, right? Such as this drawing, and you want to bring it in and then create a digital illustration from it in here, because obviously, if you're using a mouse, right, that's not super handy. If you have a Cintiq tablet, like I do, where you can draw around the monitor, that actually works pretty well. Or if you have a Wacom tablet, that's a tablet you can draw on, that also works well. But you might not have either one of those things. Normally, you would have those at your disposal in the lab, but that's not really the case right now. So, what we're going to do is this. So, basically, I have a drawing I made. I just did it on a piece of paper, and I just took a photo of it with my phone. I didn't use anything fancy. Nothing great, just hopefully this is probably what you have at your disposal. Now, if you have a scanner, then scan the drawing in. That obviously be much more preferred. You get higher resolution, it would be in focus, it would better contrast, whatever, right? But if you don't, you can just take a photo and then we'll just work from there. So basically I just did this picture, and because this is a hand-drawn cone, I drew him like with a rubber glove over his face. I needed a drawing, so this is what I made. Anyway, so first thing I'm going to do right off the bat is just that the orientation's not correct, so I'm just going to go to image rotation, and do 90 degrees counterclockwise. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is take this picture and duplicate it. Right, so I'm going to select it, and I'll hit Control J for duplicate layer. That's or Command J, like Jaywalker. That's not really a good example because it's the you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so Blue Jay, that's also bad. I'm not good at doing examples of this, but Jimmy, there you go. So so make a duplicate, and then next thing I need to do, obviously, is once we make the duplicate, is go ahead and let's crop it like it's hot. So I'm gonna badonk, and I'm just gonna make sure it's width, height, resolution. I'm gonna do 6:9 or 9:6. You can flip flop here. And make sure it's 300, and then I'm just going to adjust it and make sure the picture fits in there. Okay, so you don't have to do, obviously I'm doing a character because I just do a character for everything. It's just easier this way for me. But you may do whatever makes you feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. So try to get this to fit in there without, we'll solve that. Good, enter, enter. Okay, good. So now we have my drawing. It's the right resolution. It's all looking fine and dandy. Now, you could do this one of two ways when we go to, if you bring a drawing in. You can either just use the drawing as a reference, or you can use it, like actually keep the lines and just paint underneath it. We're going to start the process generally the same way regardless. Okay, so I'm just going to rename this original, because I didn't do that yet. Original. Okay. And then we'll rename this one. Come on. Please, can we rename you? Maybe. Come on. Okay. There it goes. Okay. Lines. And I'm just going to make sure I lock this guy back up. Alright, so now on the lines, make sure I click off of the crop tool, because otherwise it gets kind of weird. Okay, so I have the lines here. I want to put one underneath it, and this is just going to be used just so we can see this working. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to use like a bright red color, and I'm just going to paint bucket. I'm on this layer here, red. Now you can see it's on there, but obviously it's underneath, so you don't see it because the picture's above. We're going to take this picture itself, okay, the lines, and I'm just going to go ahead and do multiply. So what multiply does, maybe you can already tell, is basically anything that, it takes white, makes it transparent, and takes black and keeps it as opaque. And any variation therein, so, your grays, basically, it will kind of make them transparent and see-through and what have you, okay? So that's more or less what this did. So now I can see through my drawing, and, that's great. But one of the things that kind of stinks, let's make this a little bit lighter, because I'm like having a hard time. Like that. Whatever. Okay. One of the things I'm having a hard time, though, is just that this could be a little bit better. Just in contrast and what have you. So with this selected, I'm going to go to my adjustments, and I'm just going to go ahead and use curves, just because it gives me a lot of control compared to some of the other ones that deal with this stuff. Because I don't want to affect this part too, I'm going to select it and right click and go create clipping mask. If you don't do that, it will affect the drawing, but it will also affect this color, and that might be kind of weird. And I don't want to see it affect the color. I just want to see it affect the lines. So make sure you right click and do create clipping mask. Okay. All right. So now with that selected, I'm going to go ahead and adjust these curves here. Let's see, pull this up a little bit. Okay. All right. So what happens if I hit auto? Does that work well? That's basically what I would have done anyway. Let's not do auto, although auto was pretty good. First things first, what I like to do is I like to clamp the lights and darks. So this is a representation, right, visually of value here. So if I take this, and what we want to do is I'm going to pull this all the way to where basically it starts to go up. And I know there's a little bit of a peak here, but that's just like a random whatever. So now my whites officially start right here because there's not really anything happening in here, okay? Otherwise what will happen is that the whites that are here, or the color that's here, is just going to be some sort of gray. But if I take the white, I'm like, white starts here, what was gray will now be white. And kind of the same thing here. So you can see it kind of starts to upscale right here. So this definitely can come in a whole bunch. Now, I could try to go here if I want to go darker, or I could leave it here. So I'm going to kind of go right about there, we'll say. Next what I'm going to do is adjust the contrast. So I'm just going to click on it, make a point here, and then I'm just going to pull this up a little bit, and that will kind of brighten it. And there we go. So you can see without and with, all right? So just to give you an idea, you can see how well that's working, okay? Probably has a little bit there, but we'll go with it. Okay, so that's fine. The other thing that's happening, and it's a little more obvious when I turn this off, but you'll notice that it's adding a little bit of shading right here because the paper naturally had a gradient, so I kind of want to remove that. So to do that, I'm just going to make sure I have the picture selected itself. Now remember, I have the original, so if I need to go back, I have that. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go ahead and go over here, and you'll see we have dodge, burn, and sponge. So dodge will lighten, burn will darken, and sponge will either saturate or desaturate. What I want to do is dodge, because I want to lighten this in here, okay? Now, so I'm select dodge. Then I'm going to make it really big. I'm going to choose a fuzzy brush, and I'll make it really big, like this. You know, so just use the bracket keys to the right of the P key. They look like this. And then I want to target. So we don't want to target the shadows, because what that'll do is it'll just get rid of our pencil lines. And I don't want to do the highlights either, because they're already white. That's not a real big deal. What I'm trying to do is get rid of this kind of mid-gray. So I want the mid-tones. I'll leave the exposure at 50%. That's fine. A little bit bigger, and I'm just going to kind of go like that, and you can see, come on, there you go, and voila, you can see basically I kind of got rid of some of the shadows there by just kind of drawing a quick little stroke. Looks like there's a little bit in here too. I'm going to take my exposure down a little bit because I'm just worried about it's a little bit lighter, the drawing up there. And just get a little bit there. Okay, now the other thing I want to do is make my darkers a little bit darker. So I'm just going to go over here, go to my burn, and this time I'm not going to choose highlights because what that'll do is it'll darken the light areas, right? So what I want to target is not my midtones because I'll just end up with the same thing I had before where it gets that like middle. I actually want to target the shadows. I'm just trying to make the shadows even darker. Keep the exposure at 100, and then particularly up here, I'm going to paint this up here. And you can see, notice how when I'm brushing it, it's not really doing anything to this white area, but it's definitely making the darkers a little bit darker. So any area you think that's a little bit too light, just kind of brush this on a little, and voila. Okay, so now you can see we have a pretty good base sketch area. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and just flatten this to the lines here just to make it a little bit easier to work with. So I'm going to right click and just go to where you merge down. And now those lines are just permanently have that, okay? And you can see, if you look at my pink here, it gets a little, you can see a little bit of shadow here, but it's not terrible. It's okay. I just put this layer here just so I could see something. Okay. And good. So now this is going to be my background color because I'm just going to do a background color. So I think I'm going to make my guy orange, obviously, so I should do something that would be kind of a good complement to it. So I'm going to choose sort of a greenish cyan kind of color, I'm thinking, and I'm going to do a little bit more desaturated because I don't want it to stand out. So we'll go like that, and I'm just going to use my paint bucket and paint in there. Alright, Now I'm going to go ahead and put a layer above it. And what I like to do is just paint solid colors first. Kind of like what we did before. Where's my... There it is. Kind of like what we did before with the... Sorry, I'm going to grab my thing here. When we did with the colorized photo. But we're going to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of do solid-ish colors. And, oops, make sure I'm on the brush tool here. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to turn off any sort of pressure sensitivity. Okay, we'll go over that in a second. I'm just going to make sure opacity is 100, flow is 100, and I'm going to also do a hard brush. Okay, so the difference here, so size is pretty obvious. Hard is just the fuzziness. So this is, if I took this all the way to there, it's the same as it being this. So you can see how it's fuzzy on the edges. And if I took it and went all the way to the hardness, you'll see it makes it a straight line. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep it hard, and I'm just going to go and paint this guy orange. So this cone guy works pretty good for this as an example because he's relatively simple. So there's not a lot of color variation, so I don't have to do a whole lot with this. So I'm just going to basically use this thing as an outline, like so. And then he's got that glove on, which is probably going to be something around this color, right? Soink, right? Okay, and then I'm thinking that would be somewhat in between, because a little bit of his stuff would be showing through here. Right, so we'll do something like that. Okay, so I kind of put the primary, oh, and then he's got his gums there, so let's go ahead and make sure we put that in too. And I'm going to use the bracket keys to make this smaller, Control++, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint his gums in here. Okay, and let's do that, and get his teeth painted as well. Okay. Now, if I turn off the lines, you can see I got this basically. So, you probably want to keep the lines in, but if you don't, I'll cover kind of how to do with that afterwards. You could also, you could also start with a drawing and then draw over top of it with this. So I could put a layer above this, use this, take the opacity down a whole bunch, right? And then on the layer above, just draw with a pen here, and then go ahead and use this. And then I could draw like, come on, what's going on here? There we go. The actual lines. And then, have like cleaner line. Well, do a better job than I'm doing, but you get the idea. Kind of a thing, right? So if you want to clean up the lines, and then you would just afterwards get rid of those lines altogether. So if you wanted to keep it, you could do that too. So if you want to clean up the lines. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do kind of basic shading. So I'm just going to kind of go above that, and I'm just going to, let's just make a layer above it so I just have more control. So I'm going to hit I for the eyedropper tool and grab that orange so I know what the orange color is. And then I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. And now I'm going to play around a little bit with the brush tool here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do like halfway between for my hardness. So it's not quite soft and it's not quite hard. And then I'm going to take my opacity down. And I'm going to take my flow down. Okay, so we'll do flow like that. We'll do 50-50. And then this and this, I'm going to put both of these on. So this is going to control, if I have this guy on, let's say we do just this one, what you're going to notice is when I go to draw, When I push down hard, it'll be very opaque, and when I let loose, it'll be more transparent. Okay. Oops, I still got this one on. So it'll be very opaque, and light will be much more transparent. See that? And this one will make it thin or thick, depending on how hard I'm pushing. So I'm just going to do both, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of draw and just do a general shading over here. So I'm picturing the light source being over here, and I am just going to let's erase this here. Draw, just kind of brush in a little bit darkness there. Let's go ahead and put some shadow in here too. So I'm just kind of brushing. Right, put a little bit of shadow underneath this thing here. Right, so like so. Okay, like that, and then let's go ahead and go more into a light spectrum. So go up like this. Right, so just kind of brushing, and then on this we'll make that smaller. So I'm just using the bracket keys again. Right, and then we'll just kind of have a little bit of a rim here. That's fine. And then maybe put, like, just because that's behind us there, put kind of a highlight. That kind of a thing. The idea, and then I'll hit I for this color, and I'm just gonna make it a little bit darker. Hit B for brush. I'll just brush this here. We could just use the same color for this. I don't think it matters that much. All right, you can kind of see, and then go for a lighter color, which basically be white here. All right, and then again with the thing here, if you wanted to add a little bit of reflected highlight like that, and then here as well. Okay, and maybe underneath this guy we can put a shadow. So I'm just going to make another layer and put this one underneath this one, and I'll just do kind of pure black, and actually let's do a really dark blue, and then that's all fine. I'm just going to make my brush much larger. Right, and then maybe on this in general, I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to hit I for eyedropper. I'm going to go up here, just grab a kind of a brighter color. Minus, oops, didn't mean to do that. I meant to do control minus, there it goes. And go back to brush, and I'm just going to make it completely fuzzy, so 0 for the hardness. I'm just going to kind of real lightly, like that. Alright, control plus, and then let's make the brush much smaller. And if you were going to do just like a straight up whatever, taking a drawing and then just colorizing it kind of like that, that would totally work, and you would basically be done. Now if you don't want to do that and you want to basically make this a little bit more painterly, I will show you how to do that in another one. Okay, so but we're gonna call that good because we're right at 20 minutes. Try to make these around 20 minutes if I can help it. I just don't want to make them too long. So yeah, so basically just bring the drawing in, and then you would just use those lines, can make them multiply layer, adjust them so you get them a better contrast. You can draw over top of them if you want to clean them up, or erase out parts, or burn and dodge like we did. And then underneath, you can very similarly to what we did before, you're just going to paint the colors on there. Okay. Now, in some of the other videos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you kind of a more painterly way to do an illustration, and I'm going to do it right inside of here. I'm not going to scan something in, so if you want to go directly into it, I'll show you how to do that in another one. And then I'll do another one where you just use a photo and you basically paint from a photo. So, all right, good luck.